Hello and welcome to Inside Health, your favorite health show where we discuss and break down complex health issues into bite-sized information meant to help you take care of your health and well-being. I'm your host, Ikechebelu. Well, today we are discussing the intersection between medicine and art. Today's topic is Healing Beyond Medicine, how art is revolutionizing patient care. Well, before I introduce my guest, I would like to inform you that I'm sure you must have heard of, water therapy, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, even music therapy. But art therapy, you might want to stick around to know what it is exactly. Don't forget, you can be part of this conversation, so go on over to our social media platforms, WhatsApp, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook at Signature TV, official. Go like, comment, and share. Don't forget to subscribe. We're also live 247 on SLTV channel 265, and you can also download Signature TV app from Google Play Store to keep abreast with our programs as they drop. Don't go anywhere. Inside Health continues right after now. Well, if you're just joining us, this is still Inside Health on Signature TV, and today we are dissecting the intersection between medicine and art. Our guest in the studio is Nurse Ikechebelu Destiny, of course, a nursing practitioner, aka Nurse Artist D. Thank you for joining us, Destiny, on the show, and I'm sure it wasn't so much trouble getting to this place, was it? I'm sure it wasn't.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So I'm sure everybody's curious. Nursing, art. Nursing sciences, art, of course, art.
Yes.
Visual arts, art. What's the story? What's the connection? Because there are not too many people who are handling two seemingly diverse, professions, at the same time, doing them so well. So what was the inspiration for you? What was the interest? What was the story for you that made you think, oh, I think I can be a nurse and an artist, and I think that there's a meeting point somewhere? What's the story?
Thank you so much for having me on this show, by the way. Well, I have always loved sciences and arts. Just while growing up, I found myself drawing, although it was not as it is now. I also wanted to be in the medical field, despite, loving arts, music, and even having to draw. So the story, I've been drawing as a child. And I also didn't want to go into arts. Do you get that? Like, I love to draw. I love music and everything about art. But then the art subjects, nah.
Okay. Just like visual arts, but not core art subjects.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Like government and all that. Government. But I love literature and all that.
Okay.
But
I feel you.
then I wanted to be a medical student.
Okay.
Either medicine or nursing.
Okay.
So I found myself, nursing. I love nursing, by the way.
Okay.
And in 2020, during the COVID, that was when I harnessed my skill as an artist.
Okay.
That was when I said, I need to improve, because that time nobody was doing anything. So I improved on my art, and here we are.
Interesting. Now, in my introduction, I did mention that a lot of people know about even music therapy, water therapy, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, but art as being therapeutic, not many people know that. Now, do you think that there's a gap it is filling in healthcare? I mean, art, visual art, and if there is a gap it's filling, is there any success story yet with you?
I wouldn't say there's a success story with me currently, but because I'm yet to, push my art to the health sector and then have to experience it with my patients.
Okay.
But there have been success stories with having to introduce art into the medical sector, into the health sector,
Yes,
the
yeah.
hospitals. Health, bridges that gap between, having to treat with medicine and having to treat a person holistically. We are human beings and we are a whole person. So medicine treats that aspect of you that is sick, but there are times when your diseases tend to affect your mind, your soul. And so that's where art comes in.
Okay.
You allow that patient to express themselves through drawing. And then even patients who are, who do not know how to communicate effectively,
Nonverbal.
yes, aphasia and things like that, they can express themselves through visual arts, having to draw. And it's also like, it's more like a distraction for them too. For patients who are in pains, it can distract them for a
their
while,
pain.
yes, from their pain. So art is diverse. It's not just about the aesthetics. It's about healing you.
Okay. You mentioned a lot of profound things, but let's start from this advocacy, because it seems as though this is a new phenomenon for us down here. I know sometimes it's introduced, in other climes for children, in
Yes.
children words and all that, but it's something completely new. In fact, most people think it's probably a waste of time and resources, right? How has the advocacy been for you? Because it's not just to introduce something, it's to try to sell it and convince hospital management, stakeholders that this is something worthwhile. Now, have you gone on any advocacy, whether formal or informal, trying to maybe introduce it to a ward where you are posted? Is there any of such, advocacy moves that you've gone through, and how was it for you? Was it, were you received, or there was a pushback? How was it for you?
I was discussing with a healthcare practitioner some time ago of having to meet with the CMDA, get to introduce
Yes.
art in the ward, but the answer wasn't really, encouraging, but according to her, she said it's going to take a while. It's going to take a whole lot of writings and, having to meet the right people. But in my ward some time ago, there was one time I introduced art. It was the moment it was on a night shift.
Yes.
That moment was very tense, but I wasn't able to introduce the art for a patient. It was interpersonal right now, like my colleague, my senior colleague in the ward.
Tell us about it.
Okay,
You said it was an intense moment.
yes, night shift, having to have people who are critically ill at that moment. You're running around, writing, documenting some certain things, and I felt the moment was just so intense. My colleague was not, smiling. She was so tired. She was worn out. It was on a Sunday night, and I just picked up my pen. I was holding a pen anyway, and I used that prescription sheet. I was just, scribbling, and I drew her. Yes, I did, and I passed the paper to her. You need to see how she received it. She was so happy. It was a happy moment, I'd say.
Yeah.
She received it well, and at that moment we could flow. We could flow because the moment was really tense. It was tense at that time, but I also, me myself, I needed to express myself because I could feel it. But I just started drawing. I drew her while she was trying to document a whole lot of things, and I gave it to her, and she was so pleased.
So
It made her work very smooth.
Yeah, and seamless. So you're saying this, the therapeutic effect of art goes beyond the patient, even to the caregiver.
Yes,
It also has that effect. Now, you did mention that man is, although you didn't say it explicitly, you said man is tripartite because you said holistic.
Yes, holistic.
So there's a physical, there's a mental, all right, and then there's a spiritual.
Yeah.
But sometimes you find out, even the Bible says that when the spirit of a man is broken, it comes out physically sometimes, right? So you're saying art does not have a direct therapeutic impact on the physical.
It does.
Is that what you're trying to say? For example, the way drugs have impacts physically, they go into the body physically to do do their work.
Yes.
Does art follow the same pathway, or it has a different pathway whereby it suits the patient spiritually and emotionally, thereby bringing forth physical, improvements? What do you think?
Our mind is a lot. What we think in our minds, how our mind is kept to be expressed in the physical.
Okay.
So we could say art therapy does not really affect the physical, but
Directly.
it affects your mind.
Okay.
And when it affects your mind, that ease that it gives your mind begins to express in the physical. Yes, art does that. Art has that effect for you. Despite the cognitive, because there are some people who introduce art as a therapy. You can have physical therapy, rehabilitations, but there's rehabilitation in the mind.
Sure.
And you can do that with art.
Sure.
For patients, like I mentioned before, patients who have aphasia, patients who do not know how to communicate.
When you say aphasia, what do you mean?
People who have difficulty communicating verbally.
Okay.
Yes, they can express themselves through drawings. Probably you have a child in the hospital as a patient, and that child does not really know how to express how he feels, and probably how much of pain he feels. You can ask the child to, okay, draw how you feel for me. And that child can draw. From whatever the child draws, that thing is coming from his mind. And so what he draws, what he pens down, you can tell, okay, this is what this child is going through in the mind.
Yeah, I think it's a write-up of an autistic child that drew the phases of whatever, physical thing he was going through, sickness he was going through in the world. He drew it frame by frame. So people can actually look and say, okay, you went through this, you went through
Yes.
this. He's really brilliant. I don't even know how to, qualify. Now, I'm sure that in your quest to merge the two disciplines, you didn't just improve on your skill, probably read and researched. Now, in your research and in your quest, what category of patients require art the more as compared to others?
Okay. Patients who have difficulty, expressing themselves. Sorry, and then
Thank you.
Patients who are depressed, patients with mental illnesses.
Okay.
Sorry. Probably bipolar, depression.
We're talking psychiatry.
Yes, actually, art therapy, it integrates mental health profession into their care, just looking at human development, some psychological theories, and then merge them to help patients.
Okay. Now, are there other people like you? You know what they say? A tree can make a forest. And advocacy is a game of numbers. Are there other people who share your sentiments genuinely and who want to help you in this quest?
I'm just starting out, like I said. I'm just starting out, and I'm really hoping that in the future things will get bigger than it is right now.
Okay.
I know that there are some certain people who love art, despite being in the field of science.
Okay.
There are people like that, and it's a matter of meeting them, getting to meet them, maybe through social media. Social media is one way to meet those kind of people, and I know it has to start with me first. It has to start with me. So my movements will cause other people to rise.
Interesting. Now, You sent some of your work, but then interestingly, why visual art? There are so many forms of art. It's poetry,
Yes.
music, sculpting. Why drawing? Why visual? What was the the attraction? Look at this. If you can just slow down or just roll it. What exactly are we looking at right here?
Right, this is breast delivery.
Birth delivery,
Yes, breech position.
breech position.
Yes, yes. As you can see the baby protruding from the, that area.
So-
And then the umbilical cord, that's the umbilical cord there.
Now, if I get this picture and hang it on a wall in a maternity ward, what impact will this picture have on my patient?
It's going to have a whole lot of impact because
Tell
it
us.
gives that woman hope that I'm going to see my baby. My baby is in safe
Regardless,
hands. Yes, my baby is in safe hands. And just as I am looking at this picture of birth taking place, I'm going to have my baby. It's just it gives hope.
Yes.
It gives hope.
It shows her the picture of what she's expecting, and she holds on to it while she
Yes.
goes into. But are you available to explain? Because to the untrained eye, it was after he explained it that I now saw and understood what we were saying. So are you on ground to explain this maybe to the mother while she's trying to take her exercise prior to the the birthing process? Do you engage with them to explain? For example, if you go to an art gallery, there are curators that sit down to explain what the art is all about. Does that process also happen in this case?
The health sector is
a lot.
quite different from, yes, because in art museum you have all the time to explain to the people there, the audience, that this is what your art is all about. But in the health sector, you could have as many women. Suppose we're using the maternity as a case study here. So in that place, you get to see a whole lot of women who want to give birth, and they might be in pain. They are in pain, depending on when the contraction comes. So you may not exactly tell them that, okay, this is what this art is all about and all that, but therein they're saying a baby, and it may not just be this showing on that in that particular ward. You could have all sorts of pictures, portrait artworks that display children, babies, mothers giving birth, and that's a source of hope for them.
Absolutely. If in the course of your quest or advocacy, probably hospital calls you, nurse artist D, come and remodel our children's ward with your paintings to depict whatever they want to depict, how would you go about it?
Okay, that's different from having to draw on paper.
Okay.
It's mural, where you get to draw
What's
on.
mural?
That's having to draw on the wall.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So-
Isn't that graffiti? What's the difference?
Graffiti, I do not know exactly so much about. I'm not in depth in
Okay.
there, but murals are just drawing on the walls, having to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would you go about it, and what kind of pictures would you put up and why?
Cartoon characters, animation. If it is children's word, make it a happy place. Children love cartoons.
Okay.
Children love toys. You could just draw all of them on the wall. They also love colorful environments. So that's it.
Have you had an emotional time where maybe a patient a child probably, that you became emotionally attached to, you lost or passed, and how were you able to cope with art? Because as a nurse, as a health practitioner, there are times that things are not always that rosy. You lose your patient and things like that.
Yeah.
Because you did say that it is therapeutic for the patient and for the practitioner. So how have you coped with art in such situations? Do you have a personal story? Seems as if you do. Do you have a personal story?
Well, I do have a personal story, and it was in the labor ward. In as much as she came she didn't come to have her baby, actually. She came to have the baby removed.
Wow.
Yes, she came to have the baby removed. She already took, some certain things, and it snapped.
Substances.
Yes, I'm not gonna really mention the drug,
Yes.
but it killed the baby, and she came to the hospital because she was already bleeding, and we did everything we could, and we had the baby removed eventually, and it was a sore sight. It was heart-wrenching, and there's this other drawing I made. It's part of the video I sent you. That was what actually inspired that drawing. I drew it and I wrote something about it too, that I pushed on my social media account, on my social media page. So I had to express it out because I couldn't really hold it in. It was so much for me, that sight, and having to wonder why,
Yeah,
the mother
I
had
get
to
that.
do that.
I get that.
It was so sad.
I get that. But are there some exciting times that you had to, express yourself also? Maybe a win or birth or someone who survived, or just something that it's, you're like all pumped and you had to go, express it in art. Is it part of, if we can roll her portfolio again so that we can look at the pictures, so that she can explain some of those pictures to us. So is there an exciting moment that you had to express through art? Okay, what are we looking at? Hold on. What are we looking at now?
Oh, this particular one, it was inspired by, this phrase, old creation. So it's more like, the old you and the new you.
And the new you.
Yes. The old
Okay.
you is that, black and white area.
Okay.
With the shriveled flower.
Okay.
There.
Okay.
So it depicts pain, suffering, self-doubt, all the negative things you can think of. And then the colorful area, that burst of colorful thing trying to cover that area, that's more like the new you. When you have come into your identity as a person, that burst, it covers that area. It's more like, oh no, the past is gone, this is the new me. And then you can see that flower all there that is blooming.
Yes.
That's to show you the contrast between that old life and the new life.
And everybody has this kind of story. Yeah. Okay, moving on. The next picture, we've seen this. Next one, there's this what's this? It seems as though she's being bathed in honey,
Yes.
in oil. What does it mean?
That serene moment, I titled this Oil of Gladness.
Oh wow.
Yes. So that peaceful moment, and you're being anointed. Yes, to go out there and be joyful. Oil of gladness.
Interesting. Now, we've spoken about children's ward, labor ward, the psychiatric clinics. What other wards do you think art can bring, wholeness and, healing? What other wards are more predisposed to accepting art as a form of healing?
I believe every ward, every
Okay.
hospital corridor should put up that art.
Okay.
Imagine having to have a mini gallery where patients have drawn, you framed it, put it up there. Maybe patients who have healed and went back to their houses, and patients who probably passed on.
Okay.
Imagine what kind of hope it inspires in their hearts, and that gratitude it also inspires in their heart that, okay, I'm looking at pictures of people, art from people who may have passed on, or art from people who already became whole and healed from whatever ailment they came to the hospital for, and they went back to their house. Imagine what kind of thing it does to them.
Interesting. Okay, before we go on a break, because we're going to go into a new segment where we glean submissions from the internet, from social media about what people are saying about this particular subject matter. I want to find out something from you. Where do you see this in the next 5 years? Where do you see this intersection? How do you see it, blossoming, being fully accepted? How far do you think it will go in the next 5 years? In your mind's eye? Yeah.
I'm looking at a moment in time when, art will be integrated in the wards, in the healthcare setting.
Visual arts?
Yes, visual art. Where patients can get to express themselves, having to include also art therapists for patients who have terminal illnesses.
Wow.
Because those ones are much more predisposed to having depression and having to isolate themselves mentally. So in the next 5 years, I'm looking at that art therapy being integrated in the health sector. My movement, other people's movement too, and having to research about it too, because research is one thing. Research gives knowledge about these certain things, how people have been able to cope with art therapy, and that is what will help other people say, okay, I think it's wise for us to integrate art therapy in.
When I'm thinking in my mind, not everybody knows how to draw. I guess out of every 10 people, maybe 2 or 3 people can draw. Just from my, there are no scientific, scientific backing to the numbers. It's just something I think is how it is. Not many people know how to draw. There are not many people who are patients know how to draw. Now, how do you motivate a patient who doesn't know how to draw to draw?
You don't necessarily have to know how to draw. You
Really?
don't. Yes, we just want you to be able to express yourself. It's relieving. Art provides that safe release for you, safe expression of what you're thinking in there. You could be surprised. You just ask a patient who is terminally ill to just draw anything, and that person is just drawing something about this sickness does not have me. I am in control of this sickness. That's relieving for that patient. It's an emotional outlet for that patient.
All right. Okay, don't go anywhere. Don't forget that we are still discussing intersection between medicine and art. My doctor and I comes up right after this break. Don't go anywhere.
We are local.
We are right now with the wife of the man that was
Why the main market is in chaos. People are
We are national.
Those in support of this motion as amended, say aye.
we have taken the vote by default.
We are international.
Israeli airstrikes.
Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.
Thank you so much for still staying with us. Don't forget that we are discussing the intersection between medicine and art. Healing beyond medicine and how art is revolutionizing patient care. Welcome to My Doctor and I. But before we get into that, our guest in the house, Nurse Ikechebelu Destiny, is putting up a drawing for us. But by the time the program is over, we'll see what she had put up, what inspired it, and of course what she intends to achieve with that drawing. All right, so Sophia, a cancer survivor on Instagram, she says, I was battling chemo fatigue and constant fear, but when the hospital offered an art therapy session, I hesitated, then said yes. This painting is the first time I felt alive in months. Art didn't cure me, but it made me want to heal. Now, I know that you're already nodding, right? So it actually collaborates what we just said, that it doesn't have any direct impact on the healing process, but it makes you want to live for something.
Yes.
How do you
that hope.
respond to this? What do you think?
So just like she said, it makes you want to live for something. It gives you that hope. Your mind is already, you're anticipating your healing already. It makes you whole because, first of all, it starts in your mind. Healing starts in your mind. So if you believe that, oh yes, I'm gonna heal, I'll be fine, then before you know it, it begins to translate in your physical body.
And it's interesting that it's cancer, because most cancer patients are angry.
Yeah.
They are,
They do not have hope.
they feel hopeless and things like that. So visual arts has that power to lift their spirits so much so that they want to fight this thing and survive. That's what you're saying.
Yes, and there have been cancer survivors.
Really?
Yes.
Do you have personal stories?
I've read many stories.
Okay.
I've seen videos of people who came out. They are cancer warriors.
Wow.
Yes.
And art
They
helped
beat
them.
Yes. Art helped them cope that time, within that time period, and they fought cancer and they
Wow,
won.
they survived.
Yes.
Interesting. James, a veteran with PTSD, in a statement on Facebook says, from Veterans Care Center UK, he says, I served 12 years, saw things I wish I hadn't, came home with wounds no x-ray could detect. Talk therapy helped, but it was painting, smearing charcoal across canvas that let me scream without words. I still see a therapist, but I also have a studio now. My art doesn't erase my trauma. It gives it shape. It gives me back control. Art is medicine too. This is powerful. Coming from somebody that has PTSD.
Yeah.
Still pointing towards mental health, right?
Yeah.
So have you had patients who, or read about patients who went through art therapy in the hospital and then continued, with the art, it became a thing for them?
I was watching a documentary on
Okay.
BBC,
Okay.
and I saw how that particular hospital introduced art into their care. I saw artworks from patients, and it was mind-blowing. Like, oh, patients can really draw. Very beautiful artworks, and I'm sure some of them must have, gone ahead to keep drawing while, after being discharged from the hospital.
All right. Moving on, Mira. And it's very interesting how these submissions online are from people from the Western Hemisphere.
Yes, they're the ones who appreciate that.
How can we get our people to appreciate art?
Not very, just very few people appreciate art here. But we are getting to that place where people get to see art differently.
Okay. All right, Mira, a pediatric nurse on LinkedIn, says, as a pediatric nurse, I've seen the power of medicine, but I've felt the power of art. We started weekly art circles in our ward. Kids who wouldn't speak began drawing. One non-verbal boy painted his whole cancer journey in color blocks. Doctors treat the body, art heals the spirit. We're not replacing medicine, we are expanding what healing means. Another powerful submission.
Yes.
Now, an autistic boy. Let's talk a little bit about special needs. Children with special needs, seizure disorders, Down syndrome.
Yeah.
Do you think visual arts and painting and drawing can help them
Yes, it can help
to make sense of the chaos they often perceive from the environment? And how can you even begin this this work? Because children with special needs, for one, their schooling is a problem, because our regular schooling system doesn't really accommodate them. So what are your thoughts about that?
Special needs children actually require art therapy. It strengthens their cognitive motor reflex. And it also helps them develop their prefrontal cortex.
English, please.
Okay. That part of the brain helps them in, you know, social behavior, you know, not having to have this outburst. It helps them concentrate, it helps them focus.
Over time, or is this effect, is it immediate?
It's not immediate.
Okay.
It's not immediate. But over time, it helps them. You could see the adjustment in social behavior, and instead of having them, you know, have an outburst, they can have that outburst on paper. Draw whatever you feel like, however it is in your mind, just put it down. Draw it on paper. It helps them, and not just in that aspect to control their emotions, to, you know, that free outlet for them. It helps their cognitive motor reflex. As you're looking at that drawing, maybe you have a reference and you have something to draw with. You are looking at it, your mind, the memory is building the brain cells for memory, for you to be able to put it down, and then that motor reflex, you having to position your hand properly to draw the exact thing. Over time, it helps them.
But you find out that what's more or most obtainable is, you know, these kids scribbling abstracts,
Yes,
you know, drawings. You know, does that really make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. Abstract is very, I actually love people who draw abstracts. It shows you the kind of mind they have, very beautiful mind.
Okay.
So it helps them, whether abstract or anything, even writing too. And drawing is easier than writing, because
Oh, it is.
yes, for them,
Okay.
because you are not exactly looking at this is what you have to reproduce. So but drawing, they are trying to, you know, those lines, that texture and everything, it helps them build motor, you know, strengthen their motor reflexes.
All right, moving on. June, I suspect an Indian, says he's a father of a child with autism. On Instagram carousel, my son used to shut down at the hospital until they handed him a paintbrush instead of a tablet. Now, every visit includes 30 minutes of art therapy. It's more than play, it's how he communicates. This isn't just support, it's transformation. I think this speaks to what we just discussed now. And Dr. Leila Mahmood, an oncology consultant, he's also a professional and a thought leader. He says, I've seen what chemo does to a body. I've also seen what poetry does to a soul. One of my patients began writing haikus during treatment. Another staged a mini play about her cancer journey, not to entertain, but to cope. Incorporating arts into clinical care isn't fluff. It's evidence-based, trauma-informed, and deeply human. Art belongs in every ward. Not instead of medicine, but beside it.
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
Art is not the medicine. Art is something you add to it, and adjuvant therapy.
Adjuvant therapy.
Yes.
All
So you're not isolating it. You're not making it independent of this.
Okay.
You
So-
are adding.
Go ahead, please.
You are combining it for an effective treatment. Just like I mentioned earlier, humans are beings that they are whole beings. You cannot separate this, because if you are treating and their mind is, you know,
Is
far
ill.
gone, yes, you cannot have an effect. It has to begin with their minds first.
All right, moving on. Yes, I was going to ask, and I said, okay, let's just keep going. It will come to me. So now we're talking myths and facts, because for every phenomenon, there's always, you know, old wives' tales, you know, myths about this. So you're going to be busting some myths, and I'm looking at what you're drawing, and I'm in awe. In a few minutes, you've drawn something spectacular, but we'll get back to that. Now we're going to be busting some myths and facts. Myth one says art is just a distraction, not a treatment. And I guess this is the general, you know, thinking of, you know, Africans. It's a distraction, it's a waste of time. How do you think you can begin to change this narrative? I know it starts with you, but you have to be thinking of some strategies. Like you said, you approached a particular MD. But are there other strategies that you're using to change people's minds concerning arts, knowing that, of course, it's not a distraction? You have made that clear.
Art can be a distraction anyway. because it distracts you from your pain for patients who are in pain.
Good distraction.
Yes, good distraction. We usually tell patients we can involve their relatives to tell them stories or to engage them in conversations, or put on the television. Arts can also do that for them. It's a distraction, but it's more than a distraction because it helps you heal. It helps your mind. It helps the soul. There was this saying by Sherry for something about that. It says if your illness affects the soul, there are kinds of illnesses that affects your soul, and that is where art comes in. So apart from my own advocacy and all that, research comes into play. I believe so much in research because it helps widen knowledge. We can have participants tell us how it was for them when art was introduced.
In your ward, can you do like a mini, maybe survey, maybe gather a few kids, talk to the parents? Have you done anything like that then?
I have not. I actually finished with my internship.
Oh, you're that young. Interesting.
Yes, I'm very I'm that young.
Okay.
And
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. And with that experience, I already know, okay, if I'm going full blown into this profession, then this is the thing I want to be able to do for my patients, to have that safe outlet for them to express themselves. Then afterwards, have a survey. Let me know how you felt after art was introduced,
and follow them longitudinally to find out the outcome, their health outcome, following the intervention.
Yes, how whether it had an impact to their healing.
All right, moving on very quickly. Only trained artists benefit from artistic expression. True or false?
No.
Okay. Okay. Art therapy is just for mental health patients. Would you agree?
It's not just for mental health patients. Everybody needs art at some point. When you're stressed, there's this research too. Art therapy reduces, cortisol, stress
cortisol
hormone.
level.
Yes, it reduces.
It does.
Yes, and there have been several research done. Having to have this group, control group, and the rest of them. Art was introduced. And then afterwards, they had to take a sample of their saliva to check the cortisol level, and it drastically reduced. So
in Africans or
no, not in Africa.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I said research is very important here because it will help us have.
The question is, who will fund it? Okay, story for another day. All right, hospitals don't have time or resources for art program. You would agree?
They would make. They can always
have
make
to
some
make
time.
Yes. Absolutely. Art in healthcare is a modern trend without scientific backing.
No, that's not true. That's not true. It's everywhere. It's just not in Nigeria.
All right. And doctors and nurses aren't interested in the art. Of course, you're a living witness. All right. You're still on it. You're
Yes, I'm
still
great.
Great. It's coming out really beautifully. And then finally, art can't help with physical pain.
It distracts you from your physical pain, so it helps you.
So if it's just a distraction, when the distraction is over, you're back to feeling the pain.
That's where we give medications, depending on your pain level. If your pain level is such that distractions can't help, then we introduce medication.
All right. Okay, so this point, we'll have to see what you've been cooking in your... Let's see what you've been drawing, and tell us, in 1 minute, tell us the inspiration behind it and what you think the impacts will be on your patients. In 1 minute.
Okay, well, this...
Could you lift it up so the camera can capture it? Beautiful, 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 beautiful. All right.
Should we get to it? So this is petals. I've done a drawing like this before,
Okay.
But this is like a rough sketch. It's about resilience, beauty in vulnerability, feminine, a female, and then the flower. Both of them are fragile, very delicate. But then there's a quiet strength. There's beauty. just like in a flower, you can unravel the beauty in layers. That's just how it is for a woman. So many things to unravel. Multi-factorial beauty in a woman.
So in what word would you put this up?
I'll put this up in female medical ward.
Female medical ward.
Yes.
All right, Destiny, thank you so much for your time. You've been very wonderful. Thank you for the drawing, by the way. And we've come to the end of today's show. It's been an interesting one, dissecting the intersection between medicine and visual arts. Our guest has been Nurse Destiny Ikechebelu, and she has shown us so many ways that art can heal, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and otherwise. Thank you so much. I'm your host, Chigichi Agorom. But before we leave you, we're going to show you some health tips on malaria and typhoid that you would want to read and imbibe. And then we want to invite you to go on over to our social media platforms on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, the whole 9 yards at Signature TV Official. Go like, comment, share your story. Have you had any stories as regards arts and medicine? We want to hear from you. We are live 24/7 on SLTV channel 265, and you can download Signature TV app from your Google Play Store. It's been an interesting one. Thank you so much for your time. See you next time.